as a young man, in my early social encounters, I was always screwed up by not knowing what to say and felt a failure because I could somehow, I couldn't easily join in talk. And it was a highly significant moment when in the school where I learnt the practice of meditation in my 20s, we were offered the advice, when you don't know what to say, don't say anything. And I remember at a party, going through my usual embarrassment of not really knowing what to say, surrounded by people that seemed to be able to pour out conversation without a second thought, remembering this and sort of stepping back and with my back to the wall and just not saying anything, and the newfound confidence that flowed into me. And actually the evening went very well. Some people must have approached me, I don't remember exactly, but somehow I've never forgotten that. And time and again I notice when people come together, like we've all come together, we didn't know each other until a few hours ago, we tend to sort of explode into talk. And a lot of it is really fairly mechanical, robotic, just reaction and actions, isn't it? And quite a bit of it is through. It's not really natural, is it? It's a bit sort of forced very often. And I'd like to just give you the confidence, or offer you my confidence, that when you've nothing to say, or you don't know what to say nothing. It's very comforting, you know. And often it's a great relief to those around you. And as I've gone through life, of course, this stopping talking, I won't put it as an emphatic stop talking. This realizing there's no need to talk, that puts it in a gentler way, doesn't it? Has developed into, it makes it easier to approach this whole great opening up of discovering the significance of stillness, of quietness. Now, obviously, just sitting here now, you hardly even need to indicate it's so obvious, isn't it? We're sitting in stillness. And this stillness is the threshold to spirit and realization of the oneness that really embraces all our difference and is really why we've all come together. We can even take a further step and call it the presence of God. And our human situation is so simply that we've turned away from that. And so we forget it, we don't realize it. And hence arise all the problems of the world. So you see how this simple little action of not being quite so eager to jump into talk is a very important first step in spiritual work. I don't say stop talking, but just don't talk unless you have to. And when you don't need to talk, just be. It's okay not to. You're not a failure. Not really. Other people may say, why don't you say something like my elder sister used to get so irritated with me when I was just, why can't you say anything? Be normal, she say. And of course I didn't have the confidence then that I do now. Now I can just smile at her. But there you are. I offer you that encouragement. She's always been my big sister. I'm still her little brother. Anyway, dears, that's all I'm going to say to you today. So now, if you prompt me with something else, then something might develop. So conditioned are we to think that communication equals words? Look, you and I are looking at each other now, aren't we? What are our eyes doing? What's the whole body language of our faces doing? The attention we're giving each other. How do we talk to the trees? Or to our dog? Perhaps those of you who are drawn to a meeting like this are looking for something else. That word communication, what is it? Union, communion, union is the oneness, isn't it? That's what it's about, communication. It is sharing the oneness. And those that are not readily familiar with the instant oneness of just being still in this all-embracing oneness that we can refer to as stillness or presence. And most people, I'm afraid, are not used to that. They're not accustomed to it. They're not brought up to it. So they, feeling that absence, that loneliness, that emptiness, that something missing, of course they fill it up with talk. And of course, because you say that thing and I say that, someone else says that, so you get difference, so you get division, and the whole Pandora's box of separation comes into existence. Well, that is the world we live in. And that's why those of us that choose to follow that, perhaps what we could call deeper instinct that draws us to quietness, often find ourselves at variance with our friends and family. Why can't you just be normal? Again, as my big sister used to say to me. Of course, when you're young, you don't have an answer, do you? You just feel embarrassed, and yet you're divided both ways. Well, I'm afraid this is the nature of spiritual work, that we do feel divided. Until we reach the point where we are able to contain the whole world within oneness and come to peace, we may need a whole lifetime of struggle, of interior struggle. It is a war, a spiritual warfare with the world, the flesh, which is this, and the devil, the ego, the me, the separate me within oneself, that wants to be somebody, that wants to make an appearance, wants to establish my separate importance, my validity as a separate person. John Butler, in other words. Yes, with nature, where you don't have this aggressive feedback and things are natural, it's so much easier, isn't it? I was a farmer, I know all about this. How much easier it was to escape to the fields and my animals. I still do. I like to go there. Well, we all ask that question, my dear. How do you overcome it? I didn't. I just suffered it. I didn't know what to do, and It was awful. Went on for years. But then something changed in life. I found I was in my late 40s, early 50s, and surprise, surprise, I found I was invited to go and do a course at university as what they called a mature student, and I got interested in that, and I think I just forgot to be depressed. So it sort of passed away. But I never found an answer to it. My poor mother, she also suffered with depression for years, and nothing could help her, all the pills and things she took. And then I remember one day her telling us, I woke up and I was no longer depressed. You know, there's an old saying about the weather. If you don't like the weather, just wait a bit.
Would you say you kind of reached a rock bottom or something?
Well, just hang on, my dear. Hang on to whatever you can hang on to. Whatever little things do mean anything to you. It's not unusual. I've got no clever answer. I mean, it's all right. I can say, well, it's all part of this unreal ego, ha-ha, but when you're in it, aren't you? Reassurance from a man who's also suffered.
Okay.
Do you know, there was another occasion during my period of depression. I used to keep bees, and I went to you can probably guess I wasn't the sort of man who used to go to meetings, but I was that desperate. I did go to a beekeepers sort of gathering. And someone said to me, quite out of the blue, must have seen my glum face, Jesus loves you like no other. And at that time, I didn't really consider myself a Jesus man, but that was quite a statement to make out of the blue. Now, whatever you may think about religion and whatever Jesus may or may not mean to you, it's worth bearing in mind. I think there's another thing I remember that depression taught me, was that you can't rely on anybody. It's no good looking to man for solutions. I was a bit surprised myself that some time ago, I think, we made a video called The Hidden Blessings of Depression. I can see it looking back now. At the time, of course, I couldn't. But when nothing can help you, you turn to, well, of course, now I call it the present, that which is. Solitude. God help me. And where is God? It's always here and now, isn't it? How can we be closer to God than here and now? And this stillness expands, doesn't it? It becomes the everlasting arms. love that knows no limit. Well, dear, it's all, yes, it may well be very confusing. Well, you see, I'm learning just like you. I'm just a little boy at school, learning lessons every day. And so hopefully our understanding develops all the time. And what we wrote 20 years ago, or longer, we may not phrase it in quite the same way as we would today. But what gives me the cue to answering your question is the word contempt. Now then, a few moments ago, we were all just came together in that lovely presence, didn't we? The everlasting arms. Now in that there is not one glimmer of unkindness or rejection of anything. The very word contempt is something that has no place there. Nothing unkind in truth exists. And what is not loved and what is not accepted, every hair of our heads, as the saying goes, warts and all. Both those warts on our bodies that we seek to hide and wish weren't there, and even worse, the warts in our mind, the impurities of the mind. You see, what happens? The sun rises and all darkness flees, doesn't it? The darkness flees away. So does all the shadows of this world, all the rejection, all the unpleasantness of this world. It just disappears like mist before the sun. There's nothing but goodness. Now, look, the very room is containing us all. The space of this room is containing us. The room doesn't say, oh, I don't want you in the house. Oh, you're not a nice person, I won't have you. The dear, kind room is holding us in its walls, isn't it? Look, outside is the spring morning. Accepts us totally. So step by step by step, we expand into the infinite. And there's no question there, is there? No doubt. Now, yes, the mortal flesh. Look, we're all in various stages of decay. Some nearer the grave than others. So what? The worms must live, mustn't they? It's all okay. The soil is out there, receiving last year's life, recycling it, producing new growth. It's all going on. So, there's a passage in the Bible, isn't it? Mortality is swallowed up by immortality. Corruption by incorruption, that's right. And it's all here and now. You don't even have to believe it because it's just simple experience, isn't it? I better stop talking because I've told you to stop talking. But you see how talking it distracts us, doesn't it, to say the least. Because talking almost immediately pulls in something that isn't actually present from somewhere else, and so we lose this sense, this immediacy of presence. Although, of course, in the big picture, all the chatter in the world is contained within the greater peace. At a later stage, we may just begin to get a bit bored with my own voice. And that's probably a sort of stage 2. Why do you think people come to see me? I keep saying to Phil, why do people come? Is it because I've learned to be quiet? I have nothing to say. I told you that if you didn't ask me questions, I'd just sit and look at you. Phil knows this when he starts the video. If he doesn't ask me anything, I don't say anything. I don't know what to say. I'm a bit sort of shy. I'm not sure really. Because I tell you what it is, Martin, because I don't know, my dear. Because what it is, through a lifetime of mistakes and getting it wrong, I've come to trust less in myself. Me. Why should anybody come to see me? And more, I've come to trust more in this presence. And insofar as, God help me, this presence is available, partly because I've learned to stop talking as much, to be quiet. That's what people come for. They don't come for John Butler. They come for that presence. What do I do when I meditate, dear? I just sit there in total surrender. There's absolutely nothing whatsoever from me. Look, I just do that. I let go any last remnants that I'm aware of myself, and just sort of melt into this absolute presence. Now then, I venture to say that that's what people find attractive. Now then, how do we clear the mind, the head? Well, you can't. Can you clear the clouds from the sky? On a cloudy day, who can clear the sky? And yet if you go get in an aeroplane on a cloudy day, what happens? You go beyond them. And look, I'll give you a simple little demonstration, which you may have seen before, but it's very effective. Why should anybody want to clear the mind? There's nothing wrong with it, you see. We get awfully screwed up with condemnation of the poor mind. Look, here's the result of my mind, my last 6 months' notebook, full of thoughts. Look, here we are, buried in the mind. Recognize it? Thinking, writing notes. What am I going to say tomorrow? What will I say at the meeting this morning? Now then, in meditation, we simply do this. It really is so simple. Well, it's simple as pie to tell you how bad I've been practicing this all my life. But even if you can just recognize what I'm showing you and smile in return, you recognize it, don't you? Look, can you stop your tummy gurgling or your digestion happening or your blood flowing around? Why should you? It works perfectly well. Why do you want to stop your mind? What's wrong with your mind? Why do you want to get rid of the clouds? All you've got to do is just this. Now, this is what meditation does. So all this violence, people go into absolute torment themselves over their poor minds, in a way trying to get rid of depression, because you see you're struggling in here, aren't we? Well, in depression we don't know any better. And this really is the human condition. We just simply don't know any better. So we spend our life trying to sort out the problems of this world, don't we? Whether it's politics or the environment or something like this, we're trying to sort out this all the time. And getting cross with each other and upset and all sorts of things. Spend a lifetime like this. It's called raising consciousness. And you mentioned prayer, Dimitris. This is prayer. And then what happens? You come under higher authority. In other words, what we may call God, into thy hands, O Lord. And you just let go. Relax in the sunshine. That's better, isn't it? When you say relax the mind, you see you're trying to work with the mind. I'm trying to make more sense of my notes, you see. How do I relax my mind? No, you see, it's much easier than that. Maybe this afternoon, it's a nice afternoon, we'll go for a walk this afternoon. I'll take you up the hill. When we came out of the church this morning, it was misty, you couldn't see very well. But very often we come out of the church, and there's Bakewell down there with everybody with their problems. And we're just because we're a few hundred feet up the hill, you're above it, aren't you? You can look down, you can smile at all these poor people still in bed in their dreams and dreading the coming day. And when you go up the hill, you get a bit further above. And you don't relax the mind. It's simply a matter of, because you've been for a walk, you've forgotten about it. You just left it behind.
But when you're meditating, do you kind of think about things like that? Like being up in the mountain or
well, you're coming on to the technique of meditation, which I could talk about, if you like. But meditation is a very simple way of really, you're not working so much with the mind, Look, I tell you what, you're asking me a question, aren't you? And you're looking at me direct. And you're interested in what I'm saying, and we're listening to each other. And in this moment, you've forgotten you're depressed, haven't you? I like that phrase too. Forgetfulness is a mercy of God. No, dear. Oh, no. No. That's another key principle of meditation. You don't look for results. But look, when you go up a hill, I'm sure you've lots of lovely places where you can walk in County Cork. That's where you're from, isn't it? I bet there are. And you just go out there and you just feel better, don't you? Yeah. You look at the sea and climb a rock or two. It's natural. We are unnatural creatures. That's our problem. So really anything that takes us a step closer to nature is helpful. That's why I know some poor people who don't have much access to nature, but even they find a pigeon or a tree in the park or something, which is usually comforting. Something in a window box. Yes, funnily enough, I remember when I was a young man learning to meditate, I felt I wanted to work. I wanted something to work at. That's right. When you're full of energy, you want to have a sledgehammer to to deal with the world. But yes, that coming to rest was certainly one of the principal ways of describing meditation. Let go. Yes, and that is, of course, it relaxes the mind. You're not so much doing it, it just happens as a byproduct, doesn't it? A byproduct of turning your mind to giving it a focus, an alternative focus, which is really what meditation does. And because you're focusing on something other than depression or the problem, then the problem just gets forgotten until you come back and pick it up again. Realization is a good word. To realize, because this brings it into reality, doesn't it? This spiritual presence, which holds the whole world, holds all of us in this room. Let's start with the room, in faultless perfection. Where does that word come from? How could I say such a word? Isn't it true? Well, none of you are saying it isn't. It's extraordinary. It is just simple experience, isn't it?
It is.
Until we start questioning it. Well, all right, I'm an old man. I've had a lifetime's practice. Practice, practice, practice makes perfect. This is another salutary lesson to realize that we are saved by grace. There's very much that we can do to aid the practice. I remember I used to have little notes all around my house, reminding me to try to be present, listen and look, feet on the ground, bottom on the chair. Listen, be still, do your daily practice, meditate twice a day without fail. Pause before meals. Every time you clean your teeth or go to the toilet, use 101 little daily habits to trigger your memory. Work at it until these things are part of your mental apparatus, so they'll come automatically to you. It's hard work to begin with, but once you get these practices established, you start off by remembering once a day, maybe, if you're lucky. Maybe next month you remember twice a day. And eventually, maybe you might remember quite often. And all this, then you constantly be sucked back out of it again and lost. And when you practice, memory will come more often. Because really all that the practice is to open yourself and make yourself available. And read the scriptures, read good conscious work. Anything that helps turn your mind in this direction. But above all, in my experience, the practice of meditation, don't neglect it. That's what's been the greatest help to me over the years. Don't talk too much. All these, we can smile at them, but they're all fundamental practices. You have good heart. Well, there again, I suppose, Phil, it's practice, and we do start from different places. Some people are more results orientated. They've got perhaps a more linear approach to life. I don't think that was ever particularly my aim. I'm not sure really. We're all different. That's why meditation is traditionally guided, one-to-one. But yes, beware of looking for results. There's always more, Marion.
Yeah, I know.
I must be careful. I don't want to get sucked into offering recipes because we are different. There's said to be three ways: the way of knowledge, the way of action, and the way of devotion. And although we've all got a sprinkling of all three, we tend to be one more than another. There's no virtue in being one or the other, but it may just help to realize which predominates in you. I think I was always, as a young man, I was once described as a total lover. I always thought that was my main motivation. I was never very interested in results. I remember when I first heard the word self-realization, I thought that's the last thing I'm interested in. I didn't like it at all. I just wanted to love and be loved. And I found that in meditation. Well, of course, it starts with women, doesn't it? But that sort of continues that way. But through much failure in that field, I began to find the completion I really longed for in spirit. So follow, my dear, follow your heart, follow what you love. Yes, that's a good instruction. Follow your heart, you see, and if your heart is in the knowledge and whatever field of endeavour your heart lies, trust it and follow it. You see, it is heart, isn't it? It's what we call the heart. I know it's confusing what we mean by the heart, but it isn't really an intellectual knowledge, is it? It's a sort of an open receptivity somewhere that you can't quite define, into which what we're talking about makes sense, doesn't it? It's recognised. It isn't really sense, is it? Because it's not. You're sort of seeing with inner sight, aren't you? You're feeling with instinct or with intuition or something. And yet, when it's operative, it's obvious, isn't it? Open-hearted. I love that old hymn, "Oh, come to my heart, Lord Jesus, there's room in my heart for thee." That somehow supersedes all this thinking, doesn't it? That's a wonderful way to meditate. Just come to my heart. My God, how wonderful thou art.
I'm going to burst into hymns in a moment. How great thou art,
I know.
how great thou art, then sings my soul, my Saviour
To thee.
How great thou art, how great thou art.
Well,
The old hymns are the best.
they are indeed. Yes.